Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, as you can tell, I'm in the loft at the minute. I'm converting it into a bit of usable space, but our house has got a hipped roof, which means we've got these rafters coming down in each corner. So a lot of the roof is all sloped, so there's only so much space you can have where you can walk around. So anyway, we've got these purlins, and because they're there, it limits what you can do with the space underneath. So it's just going to be storage. So I've built stud walls all round, and I've left gaps so I can get access all round it. But in the gaps I need to do some doors. So stick around and I'll show you how I do the frames, the architraves and the doors. Okay, so that's the opening I'm going to fit the door in. But this is the completed bit of the loft that I've done. So as you can see there, I've done a door and I've done another one there. And when you open up, there's a lot of storage space inside to hide all your junk. This piece is going to be the head of the door frame. So here I'm just measuring and marking the centre of the frame. Just put a little C as it indicates the centre. Then I'm measuring out from the centre the size of the door plus a couple of mil clearance each side. Now I'm going off the 100mm mark because it's more accurate than the end of a tape measure. And just square these lines across. Now this is an offcut of one of the legs, and I'm just marking the size of the leg. Then split it in two. Square the line across. So I'm going to be doing a tongued housing joint, a through tongued housing joint. Now I could just use a normal housing joint, but this is the best joint to use for a door lining. So since it's a demonstration, I'll do the best joint. You could also just button screw it, but that's not very good. Okay, so I've preset the depth on my sliding miter saw. And I'm just trenching out where I marked up before. Most of the tools and equipment I'm using can be found in my Amazon affiliate store. A link to this can be found in the description below. As it's an affiliate, for every qualifying purchase made, the channel earns a small amount of commission. Now this doesn't cost you anymore, but it really helps to make more videos. Now I apologise about the camera placement. I know you can't really see what I'm doing, but I am marking out one of the legs for the through tongued housing joint, sorry. So because this timber's 70mm by 30mm, I'm just taking out 15mm of it each way. Same depth setting on the saw, and just plough out what I've just marked. You can do this with a tenon saw and a chisel and a hammer, but if you've got a miter saw, it's a lot quicker. So a nice snug joint, nice slip fit. And this joint will stop the legs from twisting. So back up in the loft, a little bit of assembly. Pre-drill. Put in a couple of 3-inch screws. Same on the other side. Now this piece here is to keep the legs parallel and in line with each other and the same distance apart. So I put it on the head and I mark the exact position of each of the legs. Then I mark down measuring mark down at a predetermined length. This is exactly the same on each leg, each side. Then I take the piece, little scrap of wood will do, and align the two marks up. And just bang in a little nail. And on the other side, I just line up the marks again. And this will bring the two legs in parallel together, exactly the same width apart. You have to excuse the shaky camera angle. I was trying to do it one-handed. And then this is a diagonal brace, which goes across the corners. Just bang one nail in. Use a framing square to get the frame square. If it's not, pull on the diagonals to bring it into square. Get it square and bang the other nail in. And that'll hold the frame square and parallel. So this is the architrave I'm going to be using. So I just put a little mark how far that is down from the purlin, and then another mark about 5 or 6 mil down, and that'll be the reveal from my architrave onto the door frame, just so I can get a measurement for the height of the door frame. So I know you can't see very well, but I'm measuring down from the inside of the head of the lining, so the underside of the top of the lining, and that's where it corresponds with my mark that I put on the wall before. So just measure it, mark it, square it and cut it. Now the piece at the top I deliberately left long because that wedges the door lining in. Because I want it hard up to one side, I haven't evened out the cuts. So one side's fairly flush and the other side's got quite a bit of an overhang. Usually I'd even up the overhangs, but I want this frame hard up to the wall on the right hand side. So it's a nice snug fit, and them ears on the top, they wedge it in. And the diagonal and cross braces, they also get a flush to the wall, so that's why I left them long. Okay, I'm having to take the lining back out here because the back of it's just hitting the purlin a little bit, so I just need to take a little chamfer off the back. Now if you've ever noticed that little groove on your lecky planer, that's what it's for cutting a chamfer. Now this is a folding wedge. I use these to wedge the frame in place, and they slide past each other parallel, so they'll fit any gap up to a certain point, which are ideal for fitting door frames and door linings because it'll fit the exact gap without having to find different size packers. And I've got these out of 3-inch timber, so I can send a screw straight through the middle with a pilot hole. So I know they'll never drop out and move. Just cut them off flush. And the architrave will hide all this. Now this side, as I said before, I wanted hard over, so I'm using these small plastic snap-off wedges, but they work in exactly the same way. Except it's harder to get a screw through them, so I'm just putting a screw underneath them. So if they do drop down, hopefully the screw will hold them in place. And they just simply snap off. No trimming required. Now I'm just marking the margins for the architrave. It's 5 or 6 mil, thereabouts. And I'll do this now before I put the door on. And I'll just measure it, keep a note of the sizes. Okay, this mark here is to put a piece on so I can put the hinges on. Now I'm going to use kitchen door hinges because they're easy to adjust on these small doors, but I needed to pack it out by 18mm so that the hinges would work. This is just a piece of 18mm MDF cut to size. I'm just drilling out 35mm holes to accept the kitchen door hinges, or the Euro hinges. Put a little straight scrap of wood there just to keep the hinges nice and straight. And just screw it onto the frame. There's them folding wedges again. We use them to just pack the door up while I hung it. A little bit of adjustment required. It's better. Now I'm just throwing a little magnetic catch on, so I'll keep the door closed and it'll act as a stop as well. Nice and flush. I'm just throwing a little handle on the door. Now, because I made the door frame, I know that it's exactly square, so now that I'm cutting the architrave pieces, I'm cutting them at exactly 45 degrees, which will make a perfect square. Now I'm going to glue the architrave together before I fit it to the door frame, and I'm using this mitre bond glue, which is a 2-part super glue. So you just put the glue on one side of the joint, and you spray the activator onto the other side of the joint. You bring them together as well as you can without sticking your finger, and just hold them for 30 seconds and you've got a perfect joint without trying to mess about nailing it onto a door frame and getting it right. Perfect fit, no gaps in the miters. You just simply nail it into place. Now if you haven't got a pneumatic nail gun, a hammer and nail will do just as well. So that's how I fitted the doors up here in the loft under the purlins to give us a bit of extra space. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, consider subscribing. I'll see you next time.